My mother insisted that I return home to arrange a marriage. She said she had already picked out a husband for me, Nestor. But in this life, I firmly rejected my mother's proposal. The reason was simple. In my previous life, I had married Nestor, only for him to tell me on my deathbed that he didn't love me. If it weren't for your family forcing me into this marriage, I would never have given up on Amanda. Do you know? Amanda killed herself because of this. Juliet, you have no idea. When I married you, Amanda was already pregnant with my child. She lost both her life and the child's, which is why I made sure you could never have children. It was in that moment that I understood why. Despite being married for so many years, we never had children. I died with a heart full of bitterness. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day my mother told me I should marry Nestor. Chapter 1. Mom. I don't like Nestor. My words left my mother stunned. Juliet, weren't you in love with Nestor? Since I was young, I had liked Nestor, something my parents both knew well. In my previous life, when my mother told me to return and marry Nestor, I was so overjoyed. I almost lost my mind, but I never imagined that Nestor would hate me so much. He blamed me for losing everything, even the child he had always wanted. And that's why, on my deathbed, he told me those things. He wanted to see me regret it. In that moment, I could only feel hatred for Nestor. I shook my head. Mom, that was a foolish mistake from my youth. I don't love Nestor anymore. My mother seemed surprised. The Fu family wants Nestor to marry you, she said thoughtfully. She looked at me with a serious expression. Actually, I don't like Nestor either. I met him a few times, and he was with a little street girl, but the Fu family claimed she was just a classmate of his. Since you've already made your decision, I'll turn down the Fu family. I nodded in agreement. In my previous life, the Fu family was desperate for Nestor to marry me because their company was in crisis, and they needed financial support from my parents to ensure a good dowry for me. My parents sold off a significant portion of their company shares. It was because of my family that the Fu family's business survived. But Nestor thought we forced him into marrying me. Now, that so-called pressure was gone. I had already severed ties with Nestor. After hearing my decision, my mother turned down the Fu family. I thought that after my mother rejected the Fu family, Nestor would be relieved. After all, in my previous life, he had told me that he would give up everything for Amanda. But to my surprise, Nestor called me that day. Juliet, what do you mean by this? Why are you refusing to marry me? He sounded furious. Hearing his voice on the phone, I was shocked. After all, in my previous life, just before I died, he had confessed how much he loved Amanda, even claiming he would give up everything for her. Now, he was calling me and acting as if he were the one wronged? I sighed. Nestor, we're not suited for each other. What do you mean by that? Nestor's voice now carried a tone of anger. Who are you to say we're not suited? I didn't answer. I just let him fume, quietly listening to his outrage. I know about you and Amanda. I spoke coldly. The moment Nestor heard this, all his anger seemed to vanish. Juliet, how do you know about Amanda? His voice was filled with panic. I responded coldly. Nestor, I don't care about you and Amanda, so don't bother me again. I hung up the phone. For me, Nestor had become part of the past. What he and Amanda did was no longer my concern. Chapter 2. The day I returned to my country. My mother was overjoyed and personally came to pick me up. After bringing me home, she told me that during my time abroad, the Fu family had been coming to see her every day, hoping that I would get together with Nestor. Mom, Nestor and I are not involved, and I don't want to marry him, I said. My mother smiled and nodded. The Fu family also told me that Nestor and that girl Amanda, that little troublemaker, have nothing going on. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Since he's not right for you, we'll keep looking. Our family has always been wealthy, and even the Fu family has to rely on my parents. So that's why they're in such a hurry. After all, without our support, the Fu family would be in trouble. While my mom and I were having dinner, the servant informed us that someone from the Fu family had arrived. They're always so well informed, my mom said with a light smile. I didn't say anything, just smiled in response. When Mr. Fu walked in with Nestor, my gaze immediately landed on him. He looked just as I remembered. Nestor and I had been childhood sweethearts. When we were little, he would always say that when we grew up, he was going to marry me. At that time, I would shyly agree. Mr. and Mrs. Fu were naturally happy about it and even encouraged it. On the day I left for abroad, Nestor told me to wait for him for a year. He said he would take care of things in the country and then come abroad to be with me. I waited for him overseas, but all I got was a phone call from Nestor telling me that he no longer wanted to go abroad. At that time, I didn't think much of it, but looking back now, I realize he had already started a relationship with Amanda by then. After that, I still kept in touch with Nestor every day. I would tell him about my life overseas and express my longing for him. But back then, Nestor would always cut me off quickly with just a few words. Now I understand that I was deceived by Nestor. When he saw me, there was still a hint of anger on his face. He sat in front of me, silent. Instead, it was Mr. Fu who smiled at me and said, "I knew Juliet was back, so I brought Nestor along." Juliet. You misunderstood Nestor. Amanda is just his classmate, and there's nothing between them, Mr. Fu said, still smiling. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned to look at Nestor. Under Mr. Fu's stern gaze, Nestor finally forced a smile and said, "Juliet, you really misunderstood me. Amanda and I really have nothing to do with each other." I nodded and said, "I understand now." Hearing my words, Mr. and Mrs. Fu's faces lit up with joy, especially Mr. Fu, who eagerly asked, "Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, does that mean your wedding will take place as planned?" "What wedding?" I widened my eyes and looked at Mr. Fu, asking, "Uncle Fu, Nestor and I haven't been in touch for many years. I just got back to the country. How could we get married so suddenly?" My words immediately darkened Mr. Fu's face. Chapter 3. Mr. Fu reluctantly left with Nestor. "Juliet, do you really not like Nestor anymore?" my mother asked. Looking at me, I shook my head. No matter what Nestor was like, I had already lost all interest. My mother suggested I relax a bit and go out to have fun for a few days. I agreed. That day, I met up with some friends at a bar. We were chatting when one of them pointed to a nearby booth and said, "Look at this couple. They can't even wait to get a room in public." I followed my friend's gaze. It was Nestor and Amanda. Amanda was clinging to Nestor, kissing him passionately. Even in the dim light, I could still make out Nestor's face. He lifted his head and saw me staring at him with a cold expression. He immediately panicked. He pushed Amanda away and tried to come over to talk to me. But in the next moment, Amanda was back in his arms. This time, Nestor didn't try to break free. Instead, he whispered something in Amanda's ear. I saw Amanda glance at me, her eyes filled with provocation. I smiled faintly but didn't react. She was just some little troublemaker. People like her and I weren't even from the same world. Why should I be angry? Seeing that I didn't react, Amanda hugged Nestor and shot me a triumphant smile. I turned around, pretending not to notice them. My friend, however, handed me their phone, saying, "Look." The video turned out really clear. I glanced at it. She had just captured a video. In it, Nestor and Amanda were passionately kissing. I looked at the video and smiled. "Send it to me." My friend was a bit curious. She knew my personality and that I usually didn't care about these things. But she didn't ask any further questions and just sent me the video. After chatting for a while, we all went our separate ways. Once I got home, I never expected to receive a call from Nestor. "Juliet, today is the last time I'll see Amanda," he said urgently. "I've broken up with her." I didn't respond. Instead, I calmly said, "Mr. Fu, I have nothing to do with you. I don't care who you're with." Hearing my words, Nestor quickly replied, "Juliet, I'm going to marry you. Do you think that's possible?" I asked, my tone flat. "Why not? Everyone has a past." Nestor shamelessly responded from the other end of the line, "Juliet, I'm willing to marry you. I promise I'll never see Amanda again," he pleaded. I listened to him, then smiled coldly. "Nestor, That's not necessary. We are not possible, I said. Before hanging up the phone, I was too tired to keep talking to him. After hanging up, I completely ignored Nestor. Later that day, my mom came back and told me there was a banquet that night, and I had to attend. In my previous life, it was at a banquet that my parents had announced my engagement to Nestor. But in this life, Nestor and I would never have that future. Chapter 4. When I arrived at the banquet that evening, the Fu family had already gathered. Mr. Fu walked up to me with Nestor by his side, still wearing a smile. Juliet, you're here. Mr. Fu greeted me cheerfully. You and Nestor are both young. You can have a good chat. I looked at Nestor standing in front of me. He smiled sweetly, but at that moment, I felt absolutely no interest in him. After handing Nestor over to me, Mr. Fu left. At this moment, Nestor looked at me and said, Juliet, I've broken up with Amanda. I nodded and replied, Mr. Fu, this has nothing to do with me. Juliet, you once said you would marry me, Nestor added, trying to get a reaction from me. I smiled but didn't speak. His words echoed in my mind, just like they had when I was about to die in my previous life. He never loved me. He blamed my family for forcing him to marry me. But now, it was he who kept talking to me. Nestor, weren't you supposed to love Amanda the most? I said coldly, looking him in the eye. I knew the truth. It was Mr. Fu who pressured Nestor into marrying me, because only by marrying me could the Fu family secure continued investment from my parents for their business. But my family had many better choices than to help the Fu family. His face grew cold as he responded, Juliet, you should know that people like us are bound to form alliances through marriage. Even after the marriage, we can do as we please. I listened to him and smiled. I didn't say anything else, simply turned around and walked away. I felt like it was pointless to try reasoning with Nestor anymore. The banquet continued, and my mom and dad took me around, introducing me to many people. After all, our family was the wealthiest, and these were people I would have to deal with in the future. Halfway through the banquet, Nestor suddenly walked up to the stage, grabbed a microphone, and loudly announced, Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, I have an important announcement. Many people recognized him as the young master of the Fu family, and they all turned their attention to him. My girlfriend is back in the country, and tonight, I want to propose to her at this banquet. As soon as he finished speaking, many people turned their eyes toward me. The Fu family had already leaked the news that Nestor was going to marry me in the past few days. After all, the Fu family's situation was difficult. They needed to marry into my family to secure enough investments and orders. That was why they were in such a hurry. I looked at Nestor but didn't say a word. At that moment, Nestor walked toward me and said, Juliet, will you marry me? You once told me to wait for you to return, and then we would get married. You wouldn't go back on your word, would you? As soon as he finished speaking, some people in the crowd started teasing. The young master of the Fu family waited for Juliet for 4 whole years. That's right. Juliet won't let Nestor's feelings go to waste. The murmurs around us made my parents' faces darken. They knew all too well that during these 4 years, Nestor hadn't been waiting for me. He had been in a passionate relationship with Amanda. But Nestor shamelessly looked at me and said, Juliet, when you left, you told me to wait for you. You said when you returned, we'd get married. Now I've waited for you. Will you marry me? As soon as he finished speaking, many people around us smiled at me, but I simply shook my head and said, Sorry, I'm not willing. Chapter 5. My words left the entire room stunned. In this circle, Nestor and I were almost regarded as a couple by default. This was largely thanks to Mr. Fu's constant promotion over the years. In fact, the Fu family had long considered me their daughter-in-law. So when I said those words, many people looked at me with shock. Some even began to whisper behind my back, calling me a heartless person, claiming that I must have met another man abroad and abandoned Nestor. I heard the murmurs around me and glanced at Nestor, who stood frozen in place. I knew exactly what he was trying to do. He wanted to use public opinion to pressure me into agreeing. But how could I possibly comply? I stood up, grabbed the microphone from Nestor, and walked up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've all misunderstood. I began. Nestor and I have never been in a romantic relationship. As my words echoed through the hall, many people looked at me in disbelief. In that moment, Nestor, desperate to interrupt me, tried to move forward but was stopped by my parents' bodyguards. I surveyed the crowd, then continued. Nestor has a girlfriend, and she's pregnant with his child. At my words, the entire room erupted in shock. Everyone turned to look at Nestor in disbelief. Even Nestor's face turned pale as he looked at me, panic in his eyes, pleading with me silently. I knew he wanted me to stop, but I couldn't forget what he had said to me in my past life, especially in my final moments. In this life, I had wanted nothing more than to stay far away from Nestor, but the Fu family had been pushing me step by step. So since they refused to maintain any dignity, why should I show them any courtesy? I took out my phone and cast the video from earlier onto the big screen. When the footage appeared, showing Nestor passionately kissing Amanda in the bar, hidden from everyone's view yet clearly captured in the video, everyone's gaze immediately shifted to Nestor. This was from yesterday. Nestor with his girlfriend at the bar. I said coldly. So, Nestor might have confused the person he was proposing to. As my words sank in, Nestor's face drained of color, and he collapsed weakly to the ground. Even Mr. Fu's expression changed dramatically. He glared at Nestor with fury in his eyes. But when his gaze turned to me, I saw the pure anger burning there. I ignored Mr. Fu's glare. They all knew full well about Nestor and Amanda's relationship, but they still pressured Nestor to marry me. Well, they had to deal with the consequences of their actions. The banquet, at this point, was completely silent. No one was discussing anything else anymore, only gossiping about Nestor and Amanda. As for me, I removed myself from the drama. My father took the opportunity to take the stage and announce that our family would end all business cooperation with the Fu family. From now on, we would no longer be working with them. This felt like a signal, and many people started to express their belief that future collaborations with the Fu family would be impossible. My mother led me out of the hall. I didn't expect that after all this, Nestor would still call me Juliet. You've ruined our family. His voice on the other end was filled with anger. Juliet, you'll never be as good as Amanda. Since you won't marry me, I'm going to be with her. Juliet, we'll be happy together forever. Listening to his words, I smiled faintly and hung up the phone without saying another word. Chapter 6. The next morning, the Fu family was trending on social media. Nestor's actions became the hot topic across the city. As for Fu's stock price, it plummeted after our family announced that we would no longer be working with them. Many of Fu's business partners also ended their relationships with them. Now, the Fu family was on the brink of collapse. It was also revealed that, last night, Nestor had left a letter and run away with Amanda. When I heard the news, I didn't feel any particular way. In fact, I thought it was for the best. At least now that he was with Amanda, he wouldn't bother me anymore. Mr. Fu even publicly announced that he had severed ties with Nestor. With the company in financial trouble, Mr. Fu came to my parents for help, hoping they could rescue his company. My parents refused. In the past, they had assumed I would marry Nestor, and had been willing to agree to many of the Fu family's conditions. But now, since they knew Nestor was no longer an option, they refused outright. Helpless, Mr. Fu had no choice but to return to his struggles. Months later, Mr. Fu announced that his company had gone bankrupt and that he was moving abroad. Mom told me that Mr. Fu had accumulated quite a bit of debt, and after paying it off, he was left with very little. Now, having fled overseas, he could do nothing for Nestor. As for me, I had officially taken over my family's company. A few years later, through an introduction from my parents, I met Justin, the son of my mother's best friend. We quickly fell in love and got married. After our marriage, our life was sweet and full of happiness. One day, however, I received a call from overseas. Juliet. It's me. As soon as I picked up the phone, I recognized Nestor's voice. His voice sounded tired. Nestor, what do you want from me? I asked coldly. Juliet, I want to come back. Please help me. Nestor's voice carried a faint sob. I regret everything. Juliet, Amanda has spent all my savings. And after we broke up, she and others locked me up. Now, I can't even afford a plane ticket back to the country. I listened to Nestor's cries on the other end of the line but shook my head. Sorry, Nestor. I have no obligation to help you. I ended the call without another word. I no longer had any interest in Nestor. Afterward, I blocked his number. I thought that would be the end of it. That Nestor would never try to contact me again. But, to my surprise, just half a month later, Nestor appeared outside my office building. He looked utterly disheveled, his face bruised and battered, clearly having been beaten. He was holding the hand of a young boy, who walked up to me. The boy resembled Nestor to some extent, but when he looked at me, his eyes were filled with the same hatred I had seen in Nestor's own eyes. I glanced at Nestor again. He looked nothing like the person I remembered. He was gaunt and pale, almost unrecognizable. When he met my gaze, all I felt was indifference. Juliet! Seeing me, he called out urgently, "I'm back!" I didn't respond, merely watching him in silence. At that moment, he looked at me with desperation in his eyes. "Juliet, please help me." I shook my head. "Nestor, this is all your own doing." With that, I turned and walked back into the building, leaving him standing there. Chapter 7. I was continuing my work at the office when something unexpected happened. The secretary rushed in, telling me that Amanda had arrived at the building and was causing a scene downstairs, accusing me of stealing her husband and child. She had been forcefully restrained by the security guards. I furrowed my brows and said, "Get her out of here." I had no interest in dealing with Amanda, nor did I have any affection for her. After Amanda was escorted out, I made a phone call to one of our mutual friends, someone who had been close to both Nestor and me. The friend informed me that Nestor's life had been quite difficult in recent years. After he ran away with Amanda, they left the country. At the time, Nestor still had money, and they spent it enjoying a lavish lifestyle overseas. Even after hearing that Fu's company had collapsed, neither of them cared. However, once the Fu family went bankrupt, all of Nestor's cards were cancelled, and his private savings were gone. Amanda continued to indulge herself and met many new people abroad, often bringing men back with her. Some even went so far as to act inappropriately toward Amanda in front of Nestor. While Nestor was beaten up whenever they drank, he ran out of money, and with his family's company in ruins, he had no choice but to take his son and work odd jobs. He lived off the help of a few friends, but just when he thought he had secured some money, Amanda took it from him. Nestor regrets everything, the friend continued. He told me many times that if he had been with you instead of Amanda, things would have been completely different. I couldn't help but smile and shake my head when I heard that. In my past life, I loved him deeply, but what did I get in return? Now, I had no feelings for him at all. To me, Nestor was just a stranger. Seeing that I didn't respond, my friend decided to change the topic. Nestor came to us for help, so we bought him and his son tickets to come back secretly, the friend explained. But over the years, many people have helped Nestor, lending him money. Not only did he never pay them back, but he also kept asking for more. So, everyone who had helped him has now stopped lending him anything. I nodded, signaling that I understood, and didn't press further on the matter. But little did I know, the situation was far from over. I hadn't even finished work when the secretary rushed in again. He told me that Amanda had started a live stream downstairs, accusing me of abducting her husband and son. She had even brought a banner with her. Since I was the wealthiest person in the city, and my relationship with my husband was well known as perfect, I was viewed by many as a good wife. Now, the rumor that I had stolen someone else's husband and child had quickly become the talk of the town. Upon hearing this, I was visibly displeased. I ordered the secretary to call the police and take legal action against Amanda. The secretary rushed off to make the call, while I made my way downstairs with my bodyguards, ready to face Amanda. When I saw her, she looked pale and exhausted, with noticeable bloodshot eyes, clearly a result of her long-term alcohol abuse. As soon as she saw me, Amanda charged at me. "Juliet, give me back my husband and my child." I coldly stared at her and replied, "Your husband and child are not with me. You've got the wrong person. I have nothing to do with them." I continued, "Amanda, face twisted in anger, shot back. You're saying they're not with you? How could that be? Juliet. You must have hidden my husband and child. Chapter 8. I couldn't be bothered with this lunatic anymore and was about to leave. But as I turned around, I unexpectedly saw Nestor. He was hiding in a corner, holding a child. When he saw me, his eyes were filled with urgency. He had nowhere else to go. After encountering Amanda, he had hidden away, only daring to appear when he saw me. Juliet. Help me! He rushed up to me. Only you can help me. We're not married. Amanda and we're not a couple. I can still marry you, he said eagerly. I promise. From now on, I will listen to you for the rest of my life. I coldly looked at Nestor and replied, sorry, I'm already married. I love my husband. After saying this, I turned to leave, but when Amanda saw Nestor appear, she immediately charged toward him. Nestor, you really came to find her, Amanda shouted angrily, rushing toward Nestor. Nestor stood frozen, staring at me. I looked at him, and his eyes were filled with despair. He turned and looked at Amanda, and in that moment, I saw madness in Nestor's eyes. Suddenly, Nestor lunged toward Amanda. I don't know when, but a knife appeared in his hand. I watched in horror as Nestor plunged the knife directly into Amanda's abdomen. Amanda, you ruined my life, Nestor shouted frantically. Amanda, I hate you. I'm going to kill you. The crowd around us stared in shock, clearly not expecting Nestor to suddenly commit murder. After killing Amanda, Nestor stood there, staring at her lifeless body. He turned to look at me and asked, Juliet, if I hadn't been with Amanda, would you have married me? I said nothing, still staring at him. He looked at me, giving a bleak smile. I know, if I hadn't married Amanda, if I had come to you first instead, we would have been together long ago. Juliet, I was wrong. If there's a next life, I will definitely marry you. He raised his head and spoke softly, but I just coldly shook my head and said, Nestor, if there's a next life, I hope we never meet. He stood still, staring at me, then gave a sad smile, raised the knife, and drove it straight into his chest. I watched silently as Nestor took his own life. At that moment, the police finally arrived. Rushing to the scene, they took away both Nestor and Amanda's bodies. As for Nestor and Amanda's child, he was also taken away. The child, having witnessed the deaths of both his parents, looked at me with eyes full of hatred. I shook my head, knowing deep down that this child was lost. In the end, the police informed me that the child had been taken by Fu's father. Years later, I had my own children, and with Justin's and my guidance, our child turned out to be exceptional. One day, I received a call from a friend. Do you remember Nestor's child? My friend asked, laughing. Yes, I remember. I nodded in response. What happened to him? That child killed Fu's father and Fu's mother. Now, he's facing the death penalty. I was taken aback upon hearing this. He thought that Nestor's and his own misfortune was because Fu's father didn't give them money. He always wanted to find an opportunity to kill them, and once he came of age, he seized that chance and killed his grandparents with his own hands. Now, he's going to die too. I smiled faintly, shaking my head. As expected, a wolf cub will never be a good dog.